So whatever your objective, radio advertising can play an important role in growing your business. And I'm here to give you an overview of sort of the overall radio market and a little bit about what's been happening since the start of the pandemic. Give you an overview of audiences you can reach and how it can be the perfect medium to target people, whatever you're doing. So really, a lot of people listen to radio. It's around 90% of the adult population tune in each week. And 2/3 of them are commercial radio listeners. So that's 36 million adults who listen for an average of around 13 hours each week. So with the rise of streaming music services and podcasts, we talk about there being an audio revolution. And radio is at the heart of this revolution. But what do I mean by this? Well, this is what's been happening since 2016. So if you look at the chart on the left, is the yellow is on-demand music services. The black box there is podcasts, and then the two upper ones, the grey and the sort of blue-green colour, are digital sort of streaming, digital tracks, a bit like Amazon. And if you slide over to 2020, you will see that there has been a massive fight going on. And really that fight is between owned music and streaming services. So people are much more comfortable now to borrow music, for want of a better word, rather than own it. But what happens when I add radio back in? Well, as you'll see, actually, radio has not really changed. It still continues to be the dominant listening in media. And one of the reasons why live radio still takes the lion's share of audio consumption is because it is the most important medium when it comes to fulfilling what we call key audio need states, and it fulfills 4 of them, and the biggest one being lift my mood. So it makes people feel happy. And another reason why radio has continued to maintain share is probably because it's no longer just a thing in the corner of the room. You know, it has evolved over time, and you can listen to it in the car, on your mobile, through your smart speaker, and on your laptop. And of course, we must not forget why people listen to radio. You know, they use it to discover new music, and actually, as Ed here says, it's still the most important platform to break new artists. And actually, you'll have seen Ed was out on the road in the last few weeks visiting radio stations up and down the country, because he knows how important it is to get his latest song to #1, which he currently is. So, and then according to Nielsen, on a study that they do every few years, 49% of people say that they discover new music on the radio. And the next biggest source is friends and relatives at 40%, and online streaming sort of services is 27%. And, you know, radio does provide something for everyone. Over the last few years, we've seen the rise of national stations, thanks to deregulation, increased capacities on the DAB platforms and streamed radio. And, you know, whether it's pop or Asian music, hip-hop or news-based talk radio, there is a station for just about everyone. You just switch it on and it's simple. So as we're talking about commercial radio today, we should look at the commercial audio split and the percentage of audio you can advertise on. And as you can see from this, radio, sorry to use the word again, is dominant. We are 83% of commercial audio split. On-demand music services, so those that you can advertise on, and podcasts who are non-BBC, it's 9% and 8%. And if you're wondering if it's same for younger audiences, so this is the age group who've grown up with access to streaming and podcasts, you know, and there's an interesting pattern here too. If you look at the top layer, it's a weekly reach of 66% of that audience. Whereas if you look at the bottom of the chart, you'll see that that has leveled off for podcasts and streaming services as well. So what's been happening over the last year? Well, since the start of lockdown, we've been working with research agency DRG, tracking things like, you know, shopping habits, spending intentions, and of course, listening habits. And we've just launched our 6th study, which is Radio and the Road Ahead, and it's available on our website if you're interested. But one of the things that we've tracked all the way through, and we have now done 6 of these studies, is how much more people are listening. Whether they're working from home, furloughed or key worker, there was a strong increase in the amount of time that people were listening, and that is still holding now. So back in April 2020, 38% were listening for an extra 109 minutes more a day versus lockdown. And, you know, that wasn't surprising. Things did really stop at that point, and so people were sort of listening to their radio, you know, because it meant a lot to them at the time. But actually, this increase is being maintained. So despite the country beginning to open up at the end of April, when our last research was in field, we are still seeing a big increase in listening, which suggests that extra radio listening is now an established habit. So what else has this research informed us? Well, the chief economist from the Bank of England, Andy Haldane, believes that we will bounce back pretty fast once those restrictions are finally lifted. He said that this was for two reasons. One was household psychology. You know, people wanted to put the last year behind them and get out and do the things that they've not been able to do. But his other reason was household finances, which for many are in good shape. And our own research backs Andy up. So overall, commercial radio listeners' fears around job security have decreased since August last year, with only 21% agreeing that they're worried about their finances, and this is down 10% from last August. But what is most interesting is that almost half have managed to save money since the pandemic began. Certainly a positive sign for many businesses as people begin to resume their normal lifestyles. So they have money burning a hole in their pocket. And how is this going to impact on spending? Well, it does look like the high street is likely to benefit, with 3 out of 5 of the people we spoke to actively looking forward to returning to it. And, you know, something of probably a bit of a byproduct of spending so much time in our local area is we also see that people want to support their local business community. Interesting, this sentiment was much more stronger amongst commercial radio listeners than non-listeners. And this chart tells us that they're keen to spend time on socialising, notably restaurants and bars, and again, not surprising, as the vaccine rolls out and people are able to meet up with their friends and family again, things they've been starved of doing. But they've also missed travel and intend to spend their money on taking breaks. However, at the moment, the majority say they're anticipating spending more on domestic trips, although some are determined to remain optimistic about the idea of international travel. But the same audience tell us that they remain nervous about using public transport and are opting to take the car, you know, as much as for most of their journeys, and many people turning on the radio to accompany them on trips. So as we know, people anticipate spending more time in their cars, but research also backs up the positive attributes of radio advertising. So notably as a way to find out information on new products and services, but also as a tool to drive search and ignite ideas. And these numbers are impressive if you look at this chart, given that most people do not like to admit that they are influenced by advertising. And we have more research to back up this line of thinking. Radiocentre's research has 2 research projects from the previous years, the online multiplier and building shelf awareness. And they discovered that radio can help boost brand browsing, so people searching for your brand, or for online shoppers, as well as driving uplifts on people listening in the car on their way to stores. And just going back to that working from home audience that I mentioned earlier, I think they're worth a quick mention purely because it is such a valuable audience. High household incomes, home ownership, and they have an intention to carry on working from home post-pandemic. And that is of interest because we have seen a surge in extra listening from that audience, with 50% of them saying they're listening to more radio than pre-lockdown. And it's easy to understand why this particular audience are listening to more radio when you explore the reasons behind it. So the most obvious reason for this group is that, you know, radios is that they simply have more time and opportunity than they had before lockdown. But the other important reasons include news updates, especially local ones, which of course are important during those times when COVID developments were very localised. But also as a mood enhancer at a time when social isolation was high, radio provides company. It replaces that serendipity of bumping into a work colleague in the kitchen at work, you know, having a chat with your colleague over a coffee, hearing a story you hadn't heard before. But the big benefit the radio has is that it can be listened to while people are working. You don't have to do anything, you switch it on, it's the ultimate multitasking medium. And the good news is that this audience is really receptive to advertising. Over half of them agree that when they hear something advertised on the radio, they'll often look it up online, providing a huge opportunity to engage with this previously difficult to reach audience. And this audience is spending their money on a wide range of home deliveries, with takeaways and groceries top of the list, with over 40% spending their money on this category. But, they're also purchasing a range from food necessities, such as, fruit and veg, to indulgences like wine. And the final points
Sophie,
I wanted to leave you with.
Left here, please. Mirror, signal, and manoeuvre. Now slow down and come to a complete.
It's not supposed to be on. The final point I wanted to leave you with, and you'll hear more about it later, is about targeting. Because not only does radio allow you to target by age, gender, and location, it can be highly targeted for other points, including the time of day and context. So I'm going to play you this ad if it works. So let's hear it. Oh no, okay, is that what happened?
Okay, Sophie, if you can turn left here, please. Mirror, signal, and manoeuvre. Now slow down and come to a complete stop.
This okay?
Good, and apply handbrake. Now window down.
Morning, can I take your order?
I'll have a bacon roll, please.
Give in to the bacon roll from McDonald's. 3 rashers of delicious bacon in a soft white roll with either ketchup or brown sauce. Served until 11 a.m. Participation may vary.
So that was time of day, but as we've already identified, most people are doing something else when they're listening to the radio. And this presents brands with an opportunity to enhance increased engagement by, tailoring their ads to reflect the moment people hear them in. You can speak to them when they're cooking or working out. And this ad set out to speak to people in their car.
Lanes 2 and 3 have reopened between junction 1 and the roundabout northbound slow from southbound.
Driving is not a game. If you tailgate the car in front, the closer you get, the less time you'll have to react. Don't be a space invader. Stay safe. Stay back. Search Highways England for more information.
So what an example of context that is. I can remember the first time I heard that ad. I was in my car. Someone had just tailgated me back from a supermarket, and it really resonated with me. The sounds of the car travel, the crash used to draw the ear in, the use of space invaders helps communicate that message exceptionally effectively. And of course, ads can be engaging by borrowing interest through music, or, for example, by being relevant. So you'll hear more about that later on. So that's just about it from me. But to sum up, I want to remind you that audio remains a very important part of the overall day, and radio is the biggest part of audio. 37% of listeners have increased their listening during lockdown, and commercial radio listeners are evolving their shopping habits. And this is leading to a growth in local and online shopping. Radio is effective at driving sales in both those areas. Radio is highly agile, cost-effective medium that is good at bringing in national and local listener brands that can benefit from evolving listener behaviour.